Welcome to Unshrinkable, the podcast with a very catchy jingle and where we meet with some really inspiring women doing important work in the world. Get ready for powerful stories and practical tools to support you on your healing journey. I am your host, Emily Katz, and now let's dive into the episode with our next beautiful guest expert. Hello, everyone. I am super excited to introduce our amazing guest today, my beautiful friend, Shulamit. Shulamit is an incredible coach with a gift for creating a sense of deep calm and clarity. She has worked with high-level executives, entrepreneurs, and leaders worldwide, helping them unlock profound mindset shifts and life-changing breakthroughs. In our conversation, Shulamit will share her unique approach to coaching, one that goes beyond tools and techniques to tap into something deeper, helping her clients release what's holding them back and step into their full potential. We'll discuss the power of presence, the importance of truly being seen and heard, and how transformational change happens when we create space for it. Her clients describe working with her as profound, a conduit to something bigger, and a life-changing experience. From senior executives to entrepreneurs and CEOs, she has guided individuals through powerful internal shifts that ripple into every area of their lives. I'm so excited for this. Get ready for an inspiring and insightful discussion with Shulamit. Yay, let's dive in. Hi, Shulamit.
Hey, me too. I'm so excited too. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you for having me on your podcast. I am so excited that you're doing this. We've been following each other since, I would say, the beginning of our journeys, when we were putting little posts out there on Facebook and wondering what might happen, and seeing the ripple effect and educating ourselves along the way, because I think all of our journeys, like intuitive and mindful coaches, is about self-empowerment and passing that on to others, that we can do this for our sisters are doing it for themselves. And you don't need to be in therapy for life. You can actually heal yourself from within using the tools that you already have, your inbuilt intuition, wisdom. So thank you for having me on. Yes.
And my pleasure. It is an honor, and I love you, and I love what you do. And I would like you to also tell everybody what it is that you do exactly. So if you could introduce yourself and specifically how you got here doing what you do.
How I got here, who I am. Okay, my name is Shulamit. Most of my life, I was known as Rebecca. That's my English name. My mother gave me the name Shulamit when I was born. She was, I'm a child of Holocaust survivors. So my mum, even though I'm quite young to be a child, a direct child, usually people my age are generally grandchildren. So you could say I was born into trauma, or into a house that had been very deeply affected by trauma. And because I was the last of the children, my mum named me Shulamit, with a wish for peace, because Shulamit is from the word shalom, which means peace. And it also means a dove. And the relevance of that to what I do is that I like to bring inner peace to myself and to others. And a dove is a bird that's a homing pigeon, so it finds its way home. And it's very powerful in the allegories and the stories of the Bible, which I love to reference if people are interested in that, is that the dove was sent by Noah backwards and forwards from a place of deep trauma that was a flood that encompassed the whole world. Again, these are stories, but even if you take them as not true, or even if they're not your particular religion, you can see the relevance of the story as an allegory for life. When you're in a place of deep trauma, you can't just wake up all at once and you get a big shock. A dove is going backwards and forwards, and the tools that are now understood to be used in those situations, when people have been in abusive or traumatic situations, or when they've been even in a place of corporate lockdown where they're feeling like, I'm in this gilded palace of an office, but I can't breathe. There's so much overwhelm, I can't get out. So an introduction is just like opening that little window, just a little aperture where the light can come in. And that's the feeling of the coaching that I like to do, is a very gentle process. It's going here and then coming out, going here, and until you're comfortable with it, because the body and the mind both have to be comfortable with change. Change is something that is scary. Most people like to stay in their comfort zone. I've been here my whole life in my, place of, but I don't see myself ever coming out of there. Yes, I see all those other people free. For a large part of my life, I was locked into a very unhappy marriage, unhappy relationship. And I felt that there wasn't a way out. I almost visualized myself on an escalator where I could see all the other people going up and down, and I was stuck. And that feeling of stuckness was so painful because I couldn't see a way out. And it was another coach who opened the way for me. It's actually a therapist who specialized in Gestalt therapy, which is something I'm very fond of. In my coaching, I use those tools. They're very Jungian tools. very self-empowering. And yeah, it's about presence. It's about going within. Going within helps you to come, paradoxically, going within helps you to get out. Because then you realize that the cage is actually self-inflicted. There weren't ever any bars. There wasn't ever any cage. It was all in the mind. But the body has to understand that too. So there's wisdom in the body. And that's what my coaching is all about.
I love that. And we did say that we would talk a little bit about somatics, right? And so could you explain a little bit about what somatics is and how that is like key in your work?
Yeah, so I call somatics the key to the kingdom, because in the past we've had an amazing amount of, like, there's so much knowledge around now that you could go online and find so many things, tools for mindset work. This is what I should be doing. You could even go to a therapist or a coach and come home with a whole to-do list of homework of, yes, if I do this, then that. But somehow, the minute you left the room, you're like, oh God, do I have to? And there are all these resistances that come up. And research has actually shown that 95% of human behavior is really subconscious. So it's only 5%. Imagine, like, even if you went to Tony Robbins or someone who's really spectacularly good at what they do at pushing you to do things, if your body and your subconscious aren't ready to do it, you ain't going to do that thing. Or even if you do, it will last you so much, and then you'll go back to where you were before. Human beings have set points, and those set points are set when we're very young. So often people say it's between the ages of 0 and 7. It's when the brain is still in a state of developing. It's like the software is all downloading, our programs are downloading. These programs, unless we go in and hack the programs, are set for life. And until quite recently, it was thought that we couldn't change those programs. Let's say if you had something happen to you when you were young and it made you like get panic attacks or, scared of bananas, whatever it is, or even scared to earn a certain amount of money. That could have been set very early on if you saw something happen in reaction to, let's say, a parent's divorce coming about because their dad suddenly made more money and decided to upgrade his life and his marriage, including you. So those things could happen. People in the past thought, well, that's happened, you'll be in therapy for life, it's never going to change, or go on pills. But now we understand that there is such a thing as neuroplasticity, that the brain can change, and to rewire it, there are things that you can do to hack the system. And the way that I use is a very gentle way, by accessing the subconscious through the eyes of the inner child. So it's like going in and healing that part of you that thought it had to behave a certain way to be safe.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's a big piece of my work as well, is the reconditioning, the reprogramming, and
Yes.
neuroplasticity. And so we really relate on that point. And I'm always fascinated to find the different access points, like the different ways to really work on how to recondition and how to reprogram. And it's gonna be the topic of my PhD.
Yes.
So it's something that absolutely fascinates me. And so I'd love to hear as well a little bit more about who's the kind of person that you work with, and what does it look like, like sessions with you?
Oh, wow. So that's such an interesting question. It's a great question because it makes me think, who are the people I work with? And it's actually, they range from single mom to head of a law firm in the city, like one of the biggest law firms, who used to be my boss. I was junior to him. And it's quite amusing to me to see him coming to me for advice now. Whereas, although it's not advice, it's more about shining a light. I like to say my mantra is, everything is illuminated, because I love to bring light to situations. And I think if you shine a light, you don't need to push or bully people into doing something. They can see it themselves. And when they see it themselves, they're there. So I say people that I work with have a certain amount of self-awareness. They've come to a point in life where I would say they're, from late 30, like mid 30s onwards, where they've gone through a certain amount of life to realize that, oh, what they're doing, that their plan for life isn't going to plan. Why isn't it going to plan? They might find themselves in a repetitive pattern. So, for example, I would be my ideal client because I was in a pattern where I was in a narcissistic relationship, somebody that I was with, and I left. It took all my guts to leave that situation. But then I found that having left, thinking that I was okay, I then attracted to myself a number of other people who were exactly the same in a different form. And it could be that that person was my boss, which it was, not that boss, different
boss.
It could be that they were friends who, you always felt like scared to speak your mind to, because if you said your truth, they would shame you, mock you, bully you, all those things. And I think those patterns, is what I like to address. So if it's somebody who's got a pattern and they don't understand it, they don't understand how to shift it, then all we need to do is address just one area. We just start with one area that's coming up for them. It might be, my daughter's not speaking to me. It might be, I'm having such a difficult time with my team. I can't understand. They're all at loggerheads and I can't control it. I've got difficult clients who are not paying on time, or, I'm afraid to charge the prices that I charge. I have to keep cutting my prices down and discounting myself. All these patterns come from a core wound. So it's either a feeling of abandonment, of not safe, a feeling not good enough. There are 4 or 5 core wounds that we have as human beings that were triggered early on, and those patterns will reinforce themselves in whatever situation we're in. So you could leave an actual situation, but then find yourself repeating that pattern in a different situation, in a different country, in a different relationship, in a different job. So if you find that you're stuck in a pattern and the therapy is just like shining a light on it, but it's not really helping you heal. My own coach, Alyssa Nabriga, she's a mastery method coach. So she taught me not only, I've learned Somatics with people ranging from Dr. Alexander Wong, who's very, very experienced. He runs his own school of somatic healing called Somatopia. And I did a course with him. He's amazing. He learned at the feet of Dr. Peter Levine, who, these are people who are the great people who really understood that the body holds the key. Somatics are the key to the kingdom. So to unlock the mind, you have to first unlock what's going on in the body. Because trauma, and I'm not saying trauma, you may not have been in a car crash. You may not have been through something terrible in your life, but trauma can be triggered by just not feeling validated as a child. You might have felt your parents, like all the other kids in your family, were fine and you weren't, because your parents understood the other kids and just didn't understand you. So that can be a trauma. There's little t trauma and big T trauma. So all these things can trigger the body and the cells in the body to feel unsafe. And then no matter what you do or what you tell yourself, your habits are not going to change and your life is not going to change. So my coach, Alyssa Nabriga, says, when people ask her, how do I know when I'm healed? That's such a good question. So I don't think anyone's ever healed fully, because life is a journey. But healing, to her and to me as well, I agree with her. Healing is when you can actually see change, when you can manifestly see, this has changed, this shit has changed, excuse my French, this shit has changed in my life, this situation. I'm no longer baffled by this situation. This type of situation doesn't baffle me. I now know what to do with it.
100%. And I love this. And I very much as well work with the patterns and the triggers and the wounds and all of these things. I focus more of like an intellectual approach, where we do go in intellectually and kind of making sense of things and understanding things. And so this piece about the trauma stored in the body, and then the body has it. So if you could just expand a little bit more about like what do you mean then from body perspective? Like, how does the body hold it? And then how do you release it if it's a body thing?
Yeah, so interesting. Such good questions. And I wish I had hours to do this, because honestly, there's so much to know. And the best way to learn about the body is actually less about me talking about it, but for you to experience it in an actual session. So breath is the first one. So just taking a deep breath. A lot of people, when they're stressed, will naturally do this, put a hand on their heart and just go. Just that one breath, the deep belly breath, just giving yourself that presence and that soothing hand on the heart. This is the beginning of your
Either way, sorry to cut you off. Do you know how hard it is for some people to do deep belly breathing? So because I've been working with my mum, who's got lung problems and just had a stroke, and breathing is really, really important. And she's like, I breathe. I know how to breathe. And we're like, yes, but she has physiotherapy, and they're teaching her the deep belly breathing. And do you know how hard I'm sitting there with her? I sit next to her and do it with her so that she sinks in, so that she can figure out how to do, because she couldn't. She's like, when I inhale, my tummy goes in. When I exhale, I let it out. My tummy goes out. And I was like, no, switch it. When you inhale, your tummy in. I was like, imagine you're breathing in and you're inflating a balloon.
That's it.
The belly is the balloon, and then
the
when
belly
you're inflating, you're letting it air out. Because it feels so counterintuitive and so awkward and uncomfortable if you're not used to it, and we're not taught how to deep belly breathe, right? And so it's
often a lot of my first sessions are literally that. My first sessions can be literally just a few minutes of understanding body awareness. We're still thinking in our heads. So one of the key things I did want to speak about with you is literally directly related to this, where for centuries in the West, doctors have separated the mind from the body, and they've said, okay, I'm going to heal your body. If you've got something wrong with your mind, that's something completely different. Go to a psychiatrist. And I'm like, hell no, we're all one system. So
Connected.
not only that, but I studied integrative coaching with Alyssa Nobrega. She's amazing. And she taught me, and I'm licensed to coach in the Sembu method, which integrates somatics, emotions, emotional processing, because emotions are also chemicals. And if we know how to process emotions, any emotion can leave the body in 90 seconds. Imagine. So why do people stay attached to these emotions all their lives? Because we hook it onto the story. When you understand how to detach, and you're the queen of that, Emily, I know I've done your trigger tool with you and I still use it, it's lovely. Unhooking the emotion from the mind is powerful. It helps us to detach what's going on in our body from what's in our mind, because obviously it's linked. You know, so many illnesses, I would say all illnesses, come about as a result of our thoughts. So it's a cycle. So emotional processing, behavioral. So we need to also change our behavior. It's all very well, oh, I'm so aware, and then coming out and thinking, well, you know, how's that going to affect my life? So we have to do an aligned action that goes along with that. Small one, an easy one, something doable that you can do straight away. That's not intimidating, and that's joyful. And that's something that the client will pick. That's behavioral. And the last level will be unconscious, and that's going deep. That's only when a client is ready. We don't enter there until the client is ready, and unless they wish to do that. But often it just comes out automatically as long as they feel a safe space. As far as breathing is concerned, in the West, we've been breathing this way for a long time through the chest. Now, when you put your hands here, what you're doing is you're soothing the vagus nerve system at its center. So if you can imagine a tree inside you, because that's what it looks like. Our nervous system is like a tree inside of us. And let's say the beginning of the opening where the trunk and all the branches are coming out. Just doing this, so soothing, starts to relax you already. And I've done so much to help myself breathe in a calm way that I've actually taken breathing physiotherapy. That doesn't exist anymore in Britain because the National Health System doesn't believe in it for whatever reason, but it's considered too woo. But it was a thing that's the most healing. There was a Russian doctor called Dr. Buteyko, you can look him up after this, who has been discredited. But now I understand, that all those people who were discredited, it was Big Pharma not wanting people to heal systems that were making them a lot of money. Asthma, not being able to breathe, all these, I had for most of my life chronic bronchitis. It was so bad that I actually almost cracked a rib once. Chronic asthma. I've thrown away my inhalers. I've used the Buteyko system to cure my asthma. Now, this isn't the coaching that I do, but I'm happy to help people understand how the system works. Doctors always thought that the mind and the body are two separate fields. No, they're not. So there's now a stream of spiritual psychology and spiritual psychotherapy, which is beautiful. And that's what my coach was before she became a coach. She was a psychotherapist and a spiritual psychotherapist. But what I bring to coaching is another level, because if you think that your, so somatics, the body, emotions, and the behavior is all there is, that's great. But what you're missing is that there's also a soul. Spiritual side. There's also a soul. So the spiritual part of it is a huge, huge part of it. And it doesn't mean like I'm Jewish, so I bring Jewish thinking and Jewish understanding, Jewish philosophy. That was a huge part of my healing. But it's not trying to cage people or say, oh, you must do it this way. It's far less than that, than an understanding and awareness. And it's a light being shone on what is, to be like, oh, okay, I get it. And this beautiful peace descends on you. And from that place, you don't even need advice. You know
what I find fascinating about the religious aspect, the Judaism aspect, because you bring a lot of that into like our conversations as well. When we chat, you're like, you know what? Can I tell you about this story that happened? And it's all that. Yeah. And I love it. Or like, it's this time of the month in the Judaism and it means this, and it's so aligned with what's going on.
I'll tell you what time of the month it is now. So this actually today is so exciting. This is the new moon day of the month of Shevat. So it's a new lunar calendar month of Shevat, and Shevat also means shevet, which means a branch of a tree. It's like a staff. And it's also the date of the reading of the story about Moses and the plagues in Egypt. Do you know about that? Like the 10 plagues. So the last plague the plague before last, which we read about in this week's scriptures reading, is about the plague of darkness and how the Egyptians were just transfixed by darkness. It was such deep darkness that they were frozen. They couldn't even get up. It was so thick. It was like a creation of darkness. It wasn't like darkness, like, oh, it's dark. It was really thick darkness, and it was fearful. And the Jews were not affected. The Hebrew, the Israelites in that place were not affected by it. And again, just take this as an allegory, as a story, an understanding of a way of being that we're learning from. In that darkness, Israelites were able to go in and find treasure. And they didn't take the treasure, but they knew it was there. So that when the Egyptians said to them later, oh, we don't have any money, we don't have any this, they were like, well, actually, we do know where it is. It's right there. It's in your left-hand drawer in that bedroom, whatever. So I find that very funny part of the story. But I think what I take from that story is that the treasure is in the dark. So when you think you're going through darkness in life and it's so thick you can't see out, know that you don't need powerful things to get you out of that darkness. All you need is just to switch on the light. Just one person to be able to switch on the light for you. And I think that's the most powerful thing that I bring to my coaching, is not any of the tools that I've used, psychotherapy and emotional processing and tapping and all the things. Inner child work's beautiful, but it's about a very gentle, compassionate presence and powerful listening to see where the person is and to really be with them in that place, to understand where they are and to not be afraid, to have the courage to hold a light for them and to say, I see you, and you can find your way out of here, and I'm shining a light on you. And that's the most powerful thing you can do. It's very quantum.
What I think is really, really powerful is that that's what you can get out of that story. Like, it takes a very unique person to hear a story and be like, this is what I see in this story.
But it's true. That's the Kabbalistic reading. The Kabbalistic reading isn't just what's on the surface. The Kabbalistic reading, Kabbalah means receiving, and it also means acceptance. It's basically why God created the world. And Jewish philosophy is for us to receive. He wants to do only good. So if we get into a mindset of receiving, we're not in control. Like, I was listening to a lecture that you'd love, and if anybody wants to look it up, I've just attended the super trauma conference, I think it's called, trauma super conference, and Dr. Peter Levine was in attendance. Dr. Richard Schwartz, he wrote the Inner Family Systems book, which I love, all the different parts of you. Irene Lyon, another guru coach of mine that I follow, and somebody called Dr. Bruce. Yeah, these are big names. So I've gone to every conference that they've given, because I keep and I educate myself. I pay for everything that I can get. I pay for more than people invested in me for coaching. I probably invest 10 times as much in my own education so that I'm aware of what's going on. So Dr. Bruce Lipton, he's a cell biologist, and he told me this. He told everybody this. He wasn't talking directly to me, although it felt like it. But he said that he's a friend of Brian O'Leary, who's an astronaut, and they conducted the following experiment together. Brian O'Leary took some of the cells of his body, let's say he scraped some of his skin cells, put them in a test tube, and then he went flying off, and he was 350 miles away from his own cells. And somebody gave him a shock. Like, this was an experiment, and he got a shock, and 350 miles away in a test tube, his cells jumped. They had a reaction suddenly. And they repeated this again and again, and it was found that cells can have a reaction no matter how far from the body they are. So he just had this amazing download. He's like, we are not our body. We are not our body. We are transmitters of energy. And the body can receive that no matter how far away in the world it is. So imagine that, like, if you take that to another level. So what he deduced from that is that there is something inside of us that's receiving. The DNA themselves have got little neurotransmitters, and they're receiving energy constantly. But we are the transmitter. It's like a broadcast. So then he's saying, well, then we never die, because when the body dies, it would be like a television breaking, but that doesn't mean the broadcast is waves. Yeah. So if you just switched on another TV, you'd catch that. So he started to make it very spiritual. Now, I'm not going to necessarily validate everything he said, but the fact that a scientist is saying that science is coming to an understanding that there is a possibility of a God who's broadcasting and receivers who are receiving, we start to get the cosmic joke that really, why are we here? Because the soul can't really experience things without a body.
But there's the whole new field of parapsychology, which is fascinating to me as well. And I was, researching that and stuff. Like it's being studied now in university, all this spiritual kind of side, and the fact that, with spirit and reincarnation, and like it's being studied, like it's something that is developing. And I find it fascinating, obviously. But there's something that you mentioned as well, and I want to kind of tie it into something that I've the way I kind of view it and present it and talk about it is that there's three kind of parts to healing as I see it. There's the theory, and a lot of us study, we learn, we read the books, we like we understand the things, and so we have the theory piece. But then there's the practice, right? So like there's knowledge, but then you have to implement the knowledge, you have to apply the knowledge, you have to actually practice it. And so that's the second piece, the practice piece. But sometimes even when we know what we need to do and how we need to do it and when we need to do it, we still don't do it. Right? And that's the third piece that often people miss and kind of
Literally.
neglect, which is I
Yeah.
call it energetics, right? So you're referring to it as the spirituality piece, and I refer to it as energetics, which is the same, right? And so it's this idea that there's another layer, and it's the foundational piece, that if you don't have that energetic piece in place, it's going to be so hard to put the theory into practice and to even go and learn the theory or find that,
Exactly, Emily, they're all interlinked. So what I would refer to that is like there's the what, there's the how, and there's the why. So the what is like the symptoms, what's happening. And then how it's happening is like, okay, maybe there was trauma, but why really gets to the root of the thing. And that's why Viktor Frankl, he wrote this book about man's search for meaning. Logotherapy is, so it's my sense of the thing that underlying all the tools I have is really a very deep faith that I inherited from my parents. And when you mention religion, I think religion has less to do with it than actual faith, because religion is just like a Latin word for something. But faith is just trust that this is a good world, that it's run by a creator who's only good, that it's a good universe, that even Einstein said that your whole life will depend on whether or not you believe the universe is, what's the word he used? I forget, but whether it's a good one or it's benevolent or malevolent. If you believe that things are benevolent, it's all working out for the good, it will be the same facts that you're experiencing. But if you've got the why, that it's all good, it will be good. And a famous Rebbe who's called the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's a great rabbi that so many people follow, Jewish, non-Jewish, doesn't matter. And his famous saying was, think good and it will be good. And I've been studying great works of philosophy. This one, for example, it's called The Gate of Trust. I teach from it separately to my coaching. This is something I do for free because I love it. It's just disseminating wisdom. This book was written 1,000 years ago, and that saved my life. It's called The Gate of Trust, and it teaches you how to trust, because trust isn't something that you can just get to like, oh yeah, trust. If you've been in a childhood where you were abused, if you've been in a marriage that was terrible, where you were bullied or where you were trapped inside something, or for whatever reason, not everybody can trust. It's all very well saying it, but how?
Pause. Yes, I am interrupting. I'm sorry. But if you're enjoying this episode, you can prove it by liking and subscribing. And also, please share it with a friend who's into all things healing. It will be a huge, awesome support for us. So yeah, go do that. Okay, cool. Back to the show. Thank you. Love you.
There's methodology to trust. Like there is
also, when life has given you shit all the time, you're not really going to trust that you're being supported and that life's going to work out for you, because you have all the evidence and all the data points to prove otherwise.
That's it. And you'll take all these tools home and then you won't do them, because unless there's a why, you see, you'll have the practical things, but you won't want to do them. You'll think, well, I might as well just give up. What's the point?
Yeah.
You have to have a point. There has to be a point to your life. So one of my first things that I do is help people to understand that they're beautiful, precious human beings. Each one of us is so unique. There's not one person that's come to me that I don't see beauty in. And if you see your clients in your wholeness, they shine. They shine.
It's the belief system. It's part of the programming. It's the coding, right? It's like, let's look at your beliefs. And it is really often surprising, helping people uncover and like reveal what their beliefs are and their narratives, right?
Yeah, it's
Because then
uncovering
you're like,
they were already
actually
already
believe
there.
that this is going to happen. And so we really need to rewire this belief, because that belief is leading to the thoughts, to the emotions, to the behaviors, to like, it begins with the belief system.
It does.
And so many people really don't trust the world, and for good
I
reason, right?
didn't.
And don't trust
Many years.
themselves, and yeah,
Yeah.
100%, and don't trust themselves,
No.
right? Like we're so disconnected from ourselves and from nature and from whatever forces that be, however you want to call them, and whether you believe in them or not, there's something, like that we know that there's something, we just don't know what it is, and we can't really explain it.
Yes.
And so everyone's trying to find ways to talk about it and explain it, but it's all kind of the same thing. And something that I love as well is that you're bringing in the book that you shared there, and there's so much insight and wisdom from 1,000 years ago, and maybe even more as well, like when you look at Stoicism and all these different and Buddhism, and it all kind of talks about similar things.
Those same
There's
things. I've read
so much
the
overlap.
meditations of Marcus Aurelius say the same exact thing. These are ancient wisdoms.
Yeah.
They're not changed. They're eternal. And I like
It's just like everyone
revealing.
finds how to like it's like everyone's access point,
Yeah.
right? And so this is why this is kind of tying back into the point of the podcast, is finding what works for you, right? Like
Exactly.
at the end of the day, it's the same shit, more or less. We're
But you're
just
right.
trying to find a way in.
Yeah, some people get stuck in their mind and the mind loops. I was one of those people. I thought, well, I was a corporate lawyer, I was so intelligent. I understand this, and it's terrible. So you believe your mind that things are terrible because you're seeing that's terrible, and it's true, it's terrible. But
And our mind will seek the evidence to
yeah,
prove
your
what
mind
it
will
believes.
exactly. You're biased, and the mind has a negative bias. And I want everybody who listens to this podcast to understand that you're already biased in a negative way evolutionarily. Whether you believe in evolution or creation doesn't matter. We have a negative bias.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is to protect
survival.
Back in the day, if you saw a shadow, it might be a tiger, so you'd be like, quickly get away from that, and you'd be like shrinking. When you're in a place of shrinking, you can't grow, and shrinking taken to its ultimate limit is death. You're going to protect yourself so much from the world that instead of serving you, that methodology will actually make you crash. So we have to actually, our work in life, I believe, as coaches and as leaders and as women and mothers or whatever it is that you are, is to just gently, slowly begin to shift away from the negative and into the positive. And that really lines up with the new moon energy of the month, which I was going to say, Shavat, is we're moving from the darkest month into the beginning of spring and into a gentle awareness. I think I even feel it today. I went out, sun was shining. It's the first time I've gone out without a coat. So exciting. And you're feeling like the sap is beginning to rise in the trees. And this is a month where we celebrate all the fruit trees. We have a birthday for the trees in the Jewish religion. It's a funny one, but I love it. Let's celebrate. Beautiful. Celebrating all the fruit. We eat all, take all the fruit, make beautiful platters, and make a blessing on each fruit. And I think it's a way of understanding that the winter months, they feel like ultimate darkness. It's so dark, it's so cold, nothing is growing, the trees look dead. And we think, oh, it's the end of the world. And actually, that's the time of growth, but we don't see the growth. It's a time of rest that's needed. We needed to rest. We needed to hibernate. We needed to breathe and give ourselves.
This has reminded me of something with the whole that healing is non-linear, and that there are seasons, and that we have different chapters, and that we have different tides and whatever you call it, cycles of the moon, and period cycles, hormone cycles. We're not meant to be here the whole time. It's not meant to be static and at the same, we're supposed to go up and down, we're supposed to ride the waves, we're supposed to go in and out and hibernate for a bit, and then be super vibrant and zesty for a bit, and whatever. It's supposed to be a little bit messy. And it's supposed to be
chaos is the energy of creation.
Exactly.
And again, if you look at the Bible, chaos came first.
Yes, and the leaves lose their trees, and then they blossom, and then they this, and then they that, and then seeds, they get planted in the darkness, in the shit. It's very late, and then
all the shit
is nutritious, and that helps them grow.
I love
I love all of this stuff. I really do feel that it is important to remind people of this, because we have kind of unrealistic and abnormal expectations on ourselves, right? And of how life should be and how life should be like. And I really feel that, you're kind of shedding light on these pieces that I think are important for us to remember, and to we're so self-judgmental. And I think that self-judgment and shame is, I always say, it's the cock block to healing. Because if you're judging yourself all the time, and you're shaming yourself all the time, and I'm not good enough, and I'm not this enough, and I have these expectations of myself, and I'm being triggered all the time, and everything's shit, and everything's it's all this judgment and negativity, right? And I
100%.
feel that really like shedding the shame and releasing self-judgment is one of the things that can really, really help us. And I think you're touching on those points when you say when you can see somebody's beauty and uniqueness and you can give that validation and that sense of like recognition and acknowledgement, but act in a really positive way,
In a beautiful way. Wait, I have to show you something right now because it's
Go
just
for it.
sitting right here. And I was like, you're talking about chaos. I need
Yep.
to show you something. One of my coaches, I was in very deep, like, angst, and I couldn't see, there was so much going on in my life. I was moving house and everything. I seem to be always moving house. I'm moving house right now, but now I'm doing it in a much more peaceful way. Yeah, but I'm loving it now. I'm riding the wave. But at the time, I was in so much, and I was told her I'm in so much chaos. So she said, you know that chaos is the feminine energy. And I was like, what? And went right into my heart. She goes, you know, the 5 rhythms by your dancer, the 5 rhythms, chaos is the feminine dance. And I was like, whew.
Someone could have told me that sooner.
I made a painting, and I called it the Big Bang Theory or chaos energy, the theory of. And wait,
show us.
It is large. Look at that.
Beautiful.
And I painted it while I was watching, what's his name, that scientist? Brian, is it Brian Cox? I love him. Yeah. So it's not David Attenborough, it's the other one who talks about space. And I was following his trajectory of, it was an AI rendering of a satellite going through space and seeing all the universes and galaxies. And I was like, oh, it blew my mind. And it looks like chaos, but it's so orchestrated. Do you know that there's a series called Young Sheldon? It's about the Big Bang Theory. I know I'm digressing every minute. I am ADHD.
So good. So good. I'm following.
So there's a moment which the young Sheldon, who he is completely atheistic, has never believed in God and says he never will. But his mom is a religious practicing Christian. And she's getting very dejected about maybe she's wrong. And he holds her hand and they're looking at the stars. And he tells her that, you know, if all these stars went exactly like a millimeter, this away from each other, like that amount of, then the sun and the moon, and we would burn to a crisp. And if it was a tiny bit more, like a nanosecond less or a nano fraction of wavelength more, we couldn't exist. And he goes, what are the chances of that? So she's like, are you saying that statistically speaking, there must be a God? He was like, you said that, not me. And it was such a sweet scene because there is every scope to believe. And it's just a matter of choice. If you wish to believe or wish not to believe, I choose to believe that this is a good universe because I look all around and I see flowers and kittens and puppies. And like, there are so many beautiful things in the world that you don't have to look at the bad. There is so much to look at that is good. So it's just about choice. Once you realize the choice is yours, that's empowering.
I was literally going to talk about choice as well, because when you talked about the negativity bias as well, it's what are you choosing to focus your energy on as well? You can focus your energy on all the negative and all the crap in the world because there's enough of that. Like you can find it. You don't need to look very hard, right? And we all know what's happening right now. Okay, if anyone's listening in 2025.
Just wanted to take a moment to honor today because one of the hostages was just released today, and you know, I'm just celebrating her courage and the way that she the stories that are coming up. They were in the utmost. You can't get darker than a Hamas tunnel underneath the ground that they've been held in for over a year and almost 6 months. These young girls, 19 years old. The stories of courage that are coming out. This one girl, she managed to keep Shabbat. They wanted her to be a servant, clean their toilets, whatever it was. And she said, I'm not doing it on Shabbat. And she held out. And her mum said, Shabbat is the Jewish Sabbath when we're not supposed to work, supposed to rest, connect spiritually. And her mum said that if she is released on Saturday, which is what Hamas said that they were going to do, because they love putting in our faces that we will do it, you know, just to spite you on the Saturday, then people who are very religious are not going to use their cameras, they're not going to use their cars, they're not going to use technology on Sabbath. So she asked her rabbi to say, can I then drive to pick up my daughter? And he said, you know, Sabbath is sacred, you can't desecrate it. So she committed to not going to collect her daughter until Sabbath ended. And nobody could even understand. Even religious people were like, that's a bit far. And guess what happened? We were all like astounded that she would even say that she was going to wait, but she was going to send a message that, my darling, I'm going to be there for you the minute Shabbat is out, but until then, I'm just going to have to be at home. They released her early on a Thursday, and I'm seeing these miracles all the time that don't even make any sense, but the power of faith can move mountains, and I'm seeing that over and over again, that the power to hang on to the truth of who you are no matter what that is, or how people might ridicule that belief, no matter how far, even I felt that was a bit far-fetched for me.
Mm-hmm.
The power of faith is astounding in whatever circumstance you are and whatever it is that you believe in. That faith will guide you. And that's what this book says, that what you believe will come true. So it's about understanding, what are your beliefs? What beliefs do you have that might be holding you back? What beliefs do you have that are helpful, that we can help to foster and grow? And that,
So I wanted to tie it in as well, just give an example there, because it ties in with the choice and with the faith and everything, is that you can choose to kind of revise your beliefs, right? You can say, okay, well, hold on, I don't believe that is, I don't believe that this is possible, or that this is relevant, or this, whatever. But you can choose to like explore those beliefs and shift those beliefs and change those beliefs. And in the same way, you know, talking about the hostages right now getting released, and from a somatic perspective, like for me and my nervous system, I'm choosing when I'm exposing myself to consume that content, right? So like, I didn't know that there was a hostage release today because I'm consciously not consuming the news and the media, because I get really sucked into it, and then it really brings me down and it affects me and it really dysregulates me. And I want to be able to hold space for me and for what's going on, and for how, you know, like I want to be available for that emotionally. And, you know, so when like my husband, he's always on the news and always watching. And so like I was looking the other night and at the story of one of the hostages, and it was horrific, right? And I was just like, I don't want to see it right now. I don't want to see it. Like, I want to be able to like dedicate some time to really sit and listen to what she's been through, because I want to know. I very genuinely obviously want to know, but I can't do that right now, because right now I have to be a mom. Right now I have to be a coach. Right now I have to, you know, and so I have choice, and I use my power of choice to serve me and protect my energy and my, you know, self and my boundaries and my body, because my nervous system needs it, you know. And so it's another kind of just layer.
And I'm honoring that.
Exactly. Like so many people, when they start setting boundaries, they feel really guilty. And I very much have found that to be the case. And, you know, I feel guilty that I'm not on top of it, and I don't know everything that's happening, and I'm not with it, you know. But that's a choice that I'm making so that I can show up and that I can be useful and be my best self, you know, because otherwise I'm useless. I am literally malfunctioning. Like I cannot show up as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, as a anything, when I am just a blubbering mess on the floor, because of how horrific and just heart-wrenching the situation is, right? And so I feel that I have the privilege of being able to choose how exposed I am, and I will leverage that privilege. I will use that, you know. I don't want to be ashamed of having that privilege, you know. Like I'm lucky that I can choose to not be exposed to that, right? And so I do feel that this idea of choice and empowerment, and like how much power we have over ourselves and our beliefs and our thoughts and our behaviors and our lives and our healing and our journey, and whether we have faith or not, and, you know, the spiritual aspect of things as well. I think it all kind of ties in.
Absolutely. And I think we could have a whole session just on boundaries and beliefs, because those two things are crucial. And when you mentioned judgment and beliefs, those are two things that are key to an understanding of self. I think if I was sharing a little bit about my journey, but not so much, but how I came to coaching was through a long and arduous journey. And I now consider myself to be, I call myself a soul Sherpa. And the reason for that is a Sherpa guides people up a mountain. Now, anybody can climb up a mountain, right? But it's freaking hard to get to the top, and you have to fall a million times and maybe hurt yourself, and it's dangerous, and you slip, and it might be months that you're stuck in a crevice. But if someone's been there before,
give up.
Yeah. If someone's been there before, when you get to the top, you can suddenly see the path. You're like, oh, I could have come up that way. It's so much easier. So like, not everybody needs a coach, right? But I choose to have a coach because a coach is someone who's ahead of me, who's done it before. And I've only got a short life, and I want to maximize it and get the juice out of it. And I don't want to be miserable anymore. So those areas in my life where I can't see, I'll hire someone to do that for me, rather than just the rest of my life to be in like this place of darkness.
I think a lot of it self-examination experience. Right?
So how I came to it was going through years of therapy. My therapists were wonderful, but my life wasn't changing. I knew so much about my problems, but my life was still it. So I think the first time that I really understood the power of the inner work that I do now is when I came out of probably about my 7th or 12th bad relationship with the same type of man again and again, but I didn't quite see the pattern. And I suddenly burst into floods of tears. I was at my sister's house and I was on the floor. I said to her, I'm just looking at the pattern of my life, and the only common denominator that I can see in all this chaos is me. And I was like, this has to change. And so I started studying deep into the Torah wisdom with a teacher, a mentor, who I still to this day call every day. I started learning with my son, who was in an equally chaotic place at the time, but we both decided to learn this Jewish philosophy together. It was beautiful, but we had that relationship and we still do. It was a real deep connection that we had at the time. And at the same time, I did the 12 Steps program. Now, I don't know if people listening understand what CODA is, but if I could explain it, I'll just say it's like Alcoholics Anonymous. So you're doing the 12 steps of Alcoholics AA, but without the alcohol. So I didn't have an alcohol problem, but I did have a codependency problem. So CODA is a series of 12 steps that you do just to be able to get yourself into a place where you can have healthy relationships with yourself, with others, with God, if you believe in God. And it changed my life, honestly. And I use still those 12-step principles. And I realized that the Jewish philosophy that I was learning and the 12 steps were the exact same thing. That was the funniest part. They were the exact
it's the same thing, just in a different, packaging.
And it was about examining your beliefs as well. And also I think beliefs and boundaries and judgment, those are things I could talk a lot about. But if you really want to be stuck with a problem, judge it or identify with it. Those are the two things you should do, because if you want to be free of something, you need to drop the judgment and drop the identification. What do I mean by that? So when you've done something, there's a tendency to go, oh my God, I always do this thing. This is the kind of person that I am. Nobody's ever going to trust me again in that thing. I'm like, no, that was an event. And you don't need to, like, with a trigger tool, you don't need to attach the event to the self. It was just that you're in a pattern. Now, how do you break the pattern? By dropping the judgment, paradoxically. When you release yourself from that, you realize you're free. We're always free. And the same with boundaries. Boundaries can be changed. That's the nature of them. You're the one that sets them. So if you find a boundary, you put up a boundary because you're very much in fear and you don't want that person to be near, you can say, I'm never going to speak to that person again. And that's your boundary and it's right over there. But then as you heal, you suddenly realize, well, actually, I'm seeing them in my full compassion. Maybe they're like that because this happened to them or that. And I actually don't need to take it so personally anymore. You might want to move your boundary, and that's okay too. So boundaries are not something that you have to have set in stone for life. Boundaries are something that you can constantly revisit, and it's okay.
And revise and adjust as per needed. And I have a whole thing, we can do a whole thing on boundaries, and I do have a video on boundaries as well, or a few of them at least. And so it is a topic that I'm quite passionate about. I will say to myself, but I don't want to go too much more into that because we're running out of time. So I do just want to dial it back and say, we've covered like the somatics and spirituality and the intersection and a whole bunch of other things in between, which are all very relevant and connected. But we did say as well, I like to ask all of my guests to give a little exercise or a little practice or a little tip, something that we can do right now, right here, that the listeners can really try out for themselves and actually experience. Is it okay if we do the tapping, or is there something else that you
do the tapping? I don't know if all the visitors will be able to see me. Some might watch me, and otherwise I'll just describe what I'm doing so that they can understand.
Because I've never done tapping. I am familiar with it. I know it's a very like somatic based thing. It's like using the body in order to access. And so it's something I'm less familiar with. And so I'm really interested in like having a little try.
Tapping is beautiful because it connects the thoughts and the body. So very interesting how it works. It's using the pulse points or the acupressure points. And the points are, for anyone who's not watching, who's just listening, the top of the head. So having a little tap with your fingers at the top of the head, between the eyebrows, that's the third eye. Just breathing in gently as you do it. Breathe in. Breathing out. You might even feel something release as you're doing that. And the side of the eye, just by the end of the eyebrow. You can use both hands for both, the temples, You can use both hands or just one, it doesn't matter. Breathing in. Breathing out. And as you breathe in, breathe into the belly and let the belly blow like a little balloon, as if you're a little puppy or a child sleeping. Breathing in. Breathing out with the mouth. And then under the eye, once again, breathing in. And breathing out.
I already feel calm.
I know, it's very calming. It's very calming. And then under the nose, between the nose and the lips, that little shape. What's it called? Like, I don't know what, is there a name for it?
The angel bow.
The angel, that's right. They say in Jewish culture, we say it's the angel, Archangel Michael taps you there with his finger, and that's his fingerprint before you're born. That you know the whole Torah before you know everything before you're born. And then he taps you so you forget it. So everything you know, you're just relearning. And that's actually interesting, because have you often learned something and think, gosh, I think I always knew that. Yeah, so breathing in. Now we're going to the chin, tapping on the chin, just between the lips and the chin. A little dimple, breathing in. Breathing out. Lovely, keep tapping. And now the collarbone. Again, this is the vagus nerve center. This is a very powerful one. If you're in a meeting and you're feeling stressed and you don't want to feel a bit silly tapping on your head or your ears, your temple, then just use this one. You can do it under your jacket, collarbone, tapping. Breathing out. And then under the arm, where your bra would be, bra strap. Breathing in. You can do both hands if you can reach, and otherwise just one's fine. Oh, breathing out. And then the last one's a release, and it's the wrist, pulse point of the wrists. So 2 wrists tapping them against each other. Breathing in, breathing out. And then shake it off. And maybe like shake your shoulders.
I feel all tingly.
Yeah. And then 2 hands on your heart. Breathing in, nice and slow. Maybe close your eyes. And then as you breathe out, as if you're blowing out a candle, just softly through the mouth. And once more, breathing in. Beautiful.
So when do you do that? Like, when would you use that?
So you'd use that anytime I'm feeling stressed or a little bit, like even in pain, it can help with actual pain. I used it in somebody in a hospital ward once who had such chronic pain that they couldn't move her from her bed, and her pain went measurably from a 10, which was the highest possible pain that she could have, down to a 0, which was incredible because I'd never used it on somebody that severe before. And so that was crazy to witness. But however, I'm not saying it's a complete pain, because like within an hour or so, it may come back. And that's because the thoughts will come back. What if it comes back, and that will bring the pain back. So the thoughts and the senses, if you think about it, pain is all receptors of nerve endings. So is thought. Thought are also chemicals. So it's about, this is just freeing the thought, is accessing theta. And theta is where the little child is, or, the inner child who hasn't got all these thoughts. We're just going into the dreamy place where everything is okay. And when I would use it is, if I have a thought, let's say, oh my God, I'm so late. I used this method on the way to this coaching session. As you know, we were both running late, and I was here and doing all these other appointments or running late. And I thought, well, why don't I tap on the way there so that I'm integrated for the session? So I was like, so this is the tapping that I did. I'll just give you an example. You start off on the side of the hand and you do 3 rounds of even if. So even though. So repeat after me. So I'll show you how it works. Let's say, have you got a thought that's for you running late or something? Like, give me a stressful thought you might be thinking, anything, whatever comes up.
Too much to do.
Okay, right. So even though I've got too much to do, I'm feeling so stressed. I really don't know how I'm going to cope with all of this.
I
love and accept myself anyway. Beautiful. And again, even though I've got so much to do. The list just goes on and on. I don't know how I'm going to get it all done. I love and accept myself anyway. Even though I have so much to do. I don't know what I'm going to do today. Feeling nervous and panicky. And I love and accept myself anyway. And then top of the head, I love and accept myself anyway. I love and accept myself anyway. Side of the eye, I love and accept myself anyway. Under the eye, I love and accept myself anyway. I've got so much to do. Under the nose, so much to do. All these things. I'm just a human being. Chin, collarbone, all these things. And I'm just a human being. And I love and accept myself anyway.
And I love and accept myself anyway.
Under the arm. I love and accept myself anyway.
I love and accept myself anyway.
I'm going to take a deep breath. And I love and accept myself anyway.
And I love and accept myself anyway.
Shake it out. There you go. Shake your shoulders.
So how do you know what bits to say when and which words to say? Is it
Before you go into your head,
Oh.
hand on your heart, breathing in.
Sorry.
And again, breathing in. Let it out. Beautiful. Okay, so just before you go into your thought about how, why, what, why,
Yes.
how's that feeling? Is there any shift?
It feels very good.
Okay.
It feels good. It feels lovely. Also without the words, like it immediately.
Yeah, you can use this with or without words. So just if you're not sure how to do it, you can go online, just Google EFT tapping and you'll find how to do it. It's very easy, very simple. I use psychotherapy tools with tapping just to make them a bit more powerful. And I can make something bespoke for you. So in that situation, I can create something for you, and it will probably be more like a half an hour session or a 40-minute session than 5 minutes. But you can even get a grasp of the thing that.
But like coach to coach, you intuitively choose the words.
Yes, it's first of all, I have a part of the session which is devoted to me just listening.
Mm-hmm.
That would be at least 5 minutes of me listening and really catching on to what the client is saying, noticing their body language when they're saying certain things, and just tuning into the energy. And then I say, okay, I've got it, that's enough. And then using their own words is very powerful. It's the most powerful thing.
Yeah.
Number one,
100%.
they feel heard and seen and validated. And number two, they can hear themselves saying it. And we don't always know what's inside us until we actually say it. And having it received by another and reflected back to us, that's actually a powerful tool on its own, as you probably know.
Okay, that I think that's the piece that is important, using your own words, right? So that's why I'm asking. So
in that stage,
tapping, how would they know which words to use? Because the words you're giving, like you said, I love and accept myself anyway. For example, as I was doing that, I was like, is that the words that I would use for me to, like, in that moment with the stress? You know what I'm saying? Which is why I asked. So
I love and accept myself anyway is you're right. It's a very good point. And if we had more time, I'd elaborate. But I love and accept myself anyway is a very key point to hearing yourself say that. So even if you're not believing that point, your body is hearing yourself say it, and you're starting to pipe down a little bit. The nervous system is starting to calm down. I do have sometimes clients that don't feel that they do love and accept themselves, and those would not be the right words to use for them.
Because it's like not believable. You have to
cue into that. I would cue into that and use perhaps different words at the beginning for them.
Gotcha.
At the end, there's no harm going to be inflicted by that. Because if resistance comes up, if resistance comes up to that, that's just data. And then we use the data. I'll say, what's coming up for you? And then they'll tell me their feelings. I don't love and accept myself, and then we'll tap on that. Very
cool. Very cool. All right. Well, we're out of time, but you are amazing. I love you, Shulamit. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your time with us today.
So much. Thank you.
To everyone listening in, I hope you find our conversation as inspiring and enlightening as I did. And you can find Shulamit's links in the description, wherever it is that I put it. Shulamit, is there anything that you'd like to say about anything you've got ongoing on right now, or offers or something? Or
I mean, for the first time ever, I'm going to be offering group coaching to women. So obviously I do one-on-ones. I'm going to be offering it for men as well in the future, but for the moment, it's limited to women. One is for everybody, men, women, teenagers, whatever alike. And just DM me, send me a message. I'm happy to have a chat, tell you a little bit more about what I do and how I might be able to help you. And just to say that Emily is also a fantastic coach. She's one of my coaches, and I find her to be invaluable. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for your time and for being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps me reach more listeners and hopefully make a bigger impact. And we'd love to hear from you. What was your biggest takeaway from today? It's something that I think we'd both love to know and hear about, like what really landed, or what was something that, really inspired or enlightened, or was a new perspective on what you usually otherwise wouldn't have heard somewhere else. So we'd love to hear about that. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay tuned for more episodes coming your way. Shulamit, thank you again.
Love that. Stay curious. Yes. Yay.
Lots of love.
Thank you all. Lots of love. Bye.
And that's a wrap. So yay. Thank you for listening all the way through. I'm going to assume that means you liked it. So if you haven't yet, please go and hit the like and subscribe buttons. And don't forget to share this with someone who is into healing and come and say hi on our socials. We really, really would love to connect with you. The link's in the description below, and I'll catch you on the next episode.